and welcome to this journal flip through. I recently completed this bohemian style sewn cover kind of fabric-y junk journal, and I am so happy with how it turned out. I think this one is my favorite so far, and I hope you like it too. I call it the Mystical Garden Peacock themed junk journal. And the Mystic Garden is kind of obvious here because the main fabric piece on the cover is this midnight sort of blue, really dark navy blue. I hope the camera is not making it look too black. But that deep midnight blue with these golden embroidered flowers and this extra little purple flower that I added on top, it made me think of sort of a secret garden, or you know, if you go out walking after dark and if there's a light shining on somebody's front yard, or maybe your front yard or a backyard. In any case, if you're walking and it's after dark and there's a light shining on flowers, they look extra mysterious, like those bright pops of color that show up in the darkness. I prefer that aesthetic to the obvious bright daytime sort of aesthetic. Maybe I'm mystic at soul. But anyway, that was my inspiration for this cover. The whole thing is based on this one piece of sequined and embroidered peacock fabric. And yeah, before I get inside and start flipping through this beauty, I'll tell you a little bit about what these pieces are. So the cover piece, like I said, it's the sequined embroidered fabric from India. I edged the sides in sari border trim, and I just think that bright pink is gorgeous. And then this is the back cover, and it is a fabric collage inspired by the bohemian style where things are kind of patchwork and matching but mismatched, you know, a few elements that look like they're out of place. But personally, like I said, I enjoy that aesthetic when things are randomly put together and you wouldn't think they'd go, but somehow when you start stitching around them, they just work. So yeah, the back cover has more sari trim. I love the gold and silver beaded edge on this one. These two fabrics are out of my grandmom's collection. I was so lucky when I started showing her the junk journals I'm working on that over decades and decades of sewing her own clothes, she has saved all the leftover little scraps from every project she's ever done and gifted them to me. So I'm so happy to start using some of my grandmom's things in my pieces. Then this trim is all from India, and I just find it so lavish. Like, just, I know it's machine done, it's not like it's hand embroidered, but it still has such a gorgeous opulence to it. The closure on this one is just this beautiful shining purple ribbon. And then if you've seen my other journal flip throughs, you'll know that I usually put a tassel or something on the top left-hand corner of the journal. But for this one, I felt like it was so busy already with this pretty gold trim that kind of looks like necklaces, and with this purple flower I added. And I especially didn't want to cover up the head of this peacock. So for this one, I made the tassel and dangled it from one of the pages. And it is removable, so if you find that that would sort of get in your way, don't worry about that. It can clip off. You see, it's attached with a little safety pin. We'll get to that more when we get to that page. And yeah, this is a really whimsical sort of page detailing. I've kind of adorned a lot of them with little tabs and ruffles and things. So yeah, getting into the book, I'm just so excited by this one. It's a lot of my favorite things kind of put together in one journal. So yeah, this piece of trim that I've used as a pocket is quite possibly my favorite fabric ever. Like, I just love, again, that midnight blue, almost black, but midnight blue. And the way the sequins are stitched on, at first I thought this was a banyan tree, because if you've ever seen a banyan tree or sat under a banyan tree, you'll know the branches have a huge span. Like, the umbrella of that tree extends really far, like the radius goes out far from the trunk. But when it arrived and I looked at it in person, I can see it's actually a vase full of flowers. So you can kind of interpret it two ways, as a vase full of flowers or as a tree trunk with these expanding branches. But yeah, it just reminds me of some of my favorite storybook illustrations from when I was a kid. The flowers have so much character to them, and then these little flowers growing from the ground on the bottom are also just so cute. So yeah, the reason I should mention this, if you're new to my channel, welcome. I kind of jumped into it as if you're a returning viewer, but for those who are new, welcome to my YouTube channel. And the reason I call my channel Junkless Journals is that although the style of journals I'm making are similar to junk journals, you know, they have a mismatch of papers and nothing is perfectly measured or precisely cut. I love hand-torn edges, and I use a lot of old recycled vintage pieces that might otherwise be thrown in the garbage, like pieces that would be considered junk. To me, all of them are treasures, and I also use a lot of brand new materials that I find personally beautiful and inspiring, like the blank card that's included as a gift inside this pocket, like this piece here with the beautiful peacock. You can't call that junk. Like, that's a special little greeting card. And the way this envelope is adorned, and then especially the viscose trims from India. And I'm careful to order the ones that are man-made material or cotton or linen. As gorgeous as the silks are, my veganism extends also to the silkworms, and I don't want any creature to die for the creation of my art. So it's very, very beautiful fabric, and I feel that the quality doesn't suffer one bit. It's just, to me, a step above sari silk is using sari pieces that are either recycled or man-made materials. Anyway, there's my little speech for the day. But yeah, I call them junkless journals because this fabric and the cover fabric and the trims on the edges, I just can't call those junk. They're too beautiful, they're too precious, they're too unique to refer to with such a term. And especially pictures of gods and goddesses. My goodness, I would hate to disrespect a deity by calling it junk. So all the books I make have a printout image of the goddess Saraswati. And that's because, as per Sanatana Dharma, Saraswati, the goddess of creation, is an embodiment of wisdom and of knowledge. It's said that she brought the gift of language to humanity. And you see she's playing this instrument called a veena. That symbolizes her as the musician's muse, as the source of music, as the source of art and creativity. She's holding a little book of scripture, and yeah, artists will often call on her to help overcome creative block. And so by putting her in the journal, it's to ensure that the ideas and the creativity keeps flowing, that you never feel stuck for what to write. And I've backed this just with some pretty floral paper, and you can collage over this, or you can use the green spots for writing something. Do with it as you please. The pocket is made out of more sari trim, this is one of my favorites too. You'll notice as I go through these books, I have a lot of favorites. But yeah, these purple roses are just so special. And then I clipped to this page a printout that I made on cardstock of these amazing Art Deco stained glass windows. And so the image originally came just as a photograph of this architectural detail, but I felt like that would make the perfect little card. So I folded it in half and clipped it to the edge. And that's the perfect place to write some secrets. It's like a little hidden message that you can keep in your book. And as a trim, I've used a lot of this pretty dangling sari border. So yeah, the reverse of this page is a William Morris print, and he's one of my favorite wallpaper textile designers. And then on this paper, I've clipped a little envelope that I made myself, folded out of this really cool mandala origami paper. There's a little postcard, it says "Stay Unique" on this side. The back is blank so you can write or draw on it. And isn't this gilded paper just gorgeous? It's scrapbook paper, and I love how thick and sturdy it is. It was strong enough to support this pocket page. And this image is a vintage, not just vintage, an antique Chinese peacock illustration. And inside that, I added another piece that I made. This is an envelope that I made using another antique peacock image. And I stuck a little clipping of sari textile onto the corner, made the back of the envelope out of this same floral paper that backs the Saraswati image. And then inside, I just included this folded up piece of paper. So you can use this either just as it is. I love the message, "You are brave." It's a nice little reminder. And then the printed paper on this side, you can either use it as it is, you can write around here. People sometimes ask me, what do you do with the junk journal? Just like any other journal, you would write in it, draw in it, collage in it, just use it as your personal idea book. So you could easily, cut this into little pieces and use it in collaging, use it to decorate this journal or another journal, or just keep it as it is for that little reminder that you are brave. And similarly, this blue background paper, you can write or draw using like a white gel pen or something and utilize all that space. You can even write on the negative space on any of the prints. I thought this one was cool. This is a handmade paper that I bought at a local antique shop. It's actually from an old wedding guest book album. So I cut that down. I added a little grommet so that if you collect things like, for example, if you collect pendants or charms or something, but you don't feel like wearing them, you just want a place to put them, you can hang them from here and clip them into the book. I would have filled it up myself with everything, but it was already getting too thick, and I have to remind myself when I make these that they're not for me, they're for you. So whoever buys it, I'm sure, would rather have some space left over to fill it up with their own collections instead of having every inch covered in the stuff that I want to put in. But yeah, this pretty peacock, I cut that out of paper and adorned the edge. When I get a theme, I like to really run with it. And so this pretty sheet music page, it's from an Italian music book that I found at a thrift shop, and I just love that it's not only the music, and this is not coffee dyed, this is actually vintage, so the yellowing you see is natural. And I stuck another peacock card here so you can take that off and write on it. I glued this edge right onto the peacock card. Thought that was kind of fun. This page I left blank, so a lot of good writing space here. And I did glue this nice sari trim to it, and that is where I clipped the boho tassel in this book. So another element I like to include on almost all of my journals is a Ganesha. And just like Saraswati is the embodiment of creativity and art and wisdom, Ganesha is the embodiment of removing obstacles. And it's said that whenever you have an obstacle or you're struggling with something, you can call on Ganesha and he'll remove that obstacle. And so I like to include a little Ganesha in my journals. And I made this tassel right onto a tiny, tiny little safety pin. So you can even clip this to a piece of clothing and wear it like a brooch if you ever feel like it. Or you can keep it in the book. It's totally up to you. Once you have one of these pieces, you kind of make it your own and do with it what you will. This little card, it's not a peacock, it's a swan, but I still thought it was beautiful and it went with the mystical garden theme. Look at, see, this is what I mean about a midnight garden, when it's nighttime but the flowers are shining. I just love that. Another vintage peacock print. On this side, I made a tuck spot using coffee-dyed music paper over top of the vintage music paper and stuck this beautiful vintage girl from India into it. The sari she's wearing, the way that it's draped, this stunning traditional jewelry, that's the aesthetic that really inspires me most. And then I printed this brooch that's kind of in peacocky colors, and I fussy cut it. I think this took the longest of all the elements in this book to make, just because I was so particular about cutting out every single petal on the brooch. And then I just glued it down in a semicircle so that you can use it like a tuck spot pocket. And into that, I included this Chinese money envelope. And there are some little goodies in here, some little extra paper strips that when I trimmed them off for the book, I figured whoever gets it might like to have a few little extras, again for collaging or decorating the book or whatever you may choose to do. Here's a piece of paper from a book my grandmom gave me that's a book of wrapping paper that's printed from quilts. So that's an actual quilt that somebody made that's been digitally scanned and turned into wrapping paper. The back is blank, so it's a good thing you can write on or draw on, or if you need something to take notes, you can even just rip it right out of the book. And there's a little tiny piece of sari trim, gluing it down on the edge. This is the sketchbook paper. This is just more of that pretty scrapbook paper. The center of this journal, on one side it's this illustration that you can color in, and then on the other side it's this lovely watercolor flower. And then the beads I've dangled from the sewn-in signature this time are these lovely dark blue handmade check glass lampwork beads that have these pretty flowers on them. And then this cloisonné bead that I think it looks even better from the bottom and the top than it does from the sides, but it's that bright gold with gorgeous blue enameled flowers. And I love dangling beads from my journals. It adds something tactile and special that you wouldn't find that in a book that you buy at the store. You know, I like using different beads in each one and putting in pieces that have a story behind them. This page here, it's more scrapbook paper with the lace trim on the bottom that you can use as a pocket, and more of this lovely trim on the top that reminds me of jewelry. It just looks like somebody draped necklaces from the book. And I made this teeny tiny little book just by stapling together some papers and some fabrics that were left over from cutting them down to make this book. And although I tucked it into this pocket, you could easily take it out and put it wherever you choose. More of this pretty dangly trim, more of this pretty floral paper. There's a bookmark made out of prints of that same antique brooch. It's plain on the other side, so more space for writing. And I actually turned this into a little pocket, so you can put whatever you choose in there. Then another peacock tuck spot. I didn't fill something into every tuck spot, but you could easily put something in here too. And I love this. Again, it's the Enchanted garden vibe with the albino peacock and the bright colored peacock sitting together. More sketchbook paper, more vintage music paper. This one has one of my favorite tabs. The camera is not doing justice to the shocking pink. It reminds me of Elsa Schiaparelli's designs. It's truly shocking pink. This is like one step away from fluorescent if you see it in person. And this is bringing us to the end. Here's a little flip over with some not vintage, it's actually new, but it looks like a vintage design, embossed metallic wallpaper with this vintage peacock look on the other side. More scrapbook paper, and I made this removable pocket, and this is actually a page from a yearbook from 1961, and I just love that old paper. It's so crinkly. I put a book plate into it, and this is coffee dyed and stamped, and I tore and inked the edges. So this is where you could write your dedication to the book, maybe the day that you start journaling in it, what your intentions are. Maybe it's a dream diary, maybe it's an idea book, maybe it's just a travel journal or something. But yeah, I like to include these. And typically, they would get glued onto the front page, so you could stick it under Saraswati here, or maybe just put it in the pocket. Whatever you choose to do with it is up to you. But yeah, I decorated that with another hand-cut paper peacock, and this here, I'll demonstrate it with my business card. This is also an extra pocket, so that's a good place to hide something. More of that William Morris print with some pretty tasseled trim. I just love this vintage wallpaper. Like I said, new wallpaper, but with a vintage style to it. And then the inside back cover, I didn't cover up the whole thing the way I did with the front cover, because I just love the peacock feather gilded fabric too much. But I did make a mini pocket using this pretty black trim that looks like it has peacocks embroidered onto it. And it is just exactly the size of a business card. So of course I'll include my Etsy shop business card in it, but you could easily put your own business card, or all the cards you collect could probably fit into here. There's enough space. And that's the end of this book. So yeah, I hope you love it as much as I do. It's so luscious. If you wind up buying it, you're in for a treat, because I will include a couple of extra little pieces of ephemera for you to play with. And if you don't buy it, I hope it has inspired you to maybe make something similar for yourself. There's nothing like picking out your favorite fabrics and your favorite papers and your favorite ribbons and making something special. So thank you again for watching. Much love to you, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye!